Welcome back, dear followers. I am Aram Sarkisyan. You are on the YouTube channel of 168 AM. Today we have an honor to host two remarkable and honorable guests in the context of a very important and significant press conference held in Yerevan on Tuesday, February 3rd, during their visit to Armenia by Christian Solidarity International, CSI, Human Rights Organization, and the Armenian Center for Political Rights, ACPR, on findings by these organizations on the state of religious freedom and the protection of human rights in Armenia. As you probably know, this is one of the top topics we regularly cover. Dr. John Eibner, an American human rights activist and the president of Christian Solidarity International, and Mr. Erich Vontobel, a member of the Swiss National Council, joined us on this topic in our pavilion. Mr. Vontobel, Mr. Eibner, thank you for accepting our invitation. I hope I pronounce your surnames right, correctly.
Well done. Thank you very much. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you.
First of all, I would like to ask you in general to update us on your press conference with the members of Armenian states on these conclusions on human rights and religious freedom in Armenia.
Right. Well, we're here in Armenia to do a follow-up visit. We were here in November to look into the problem of church-state relations. We know that the Armenian Apostolic Church is under assault by the government. The Armenian state demands his resignation. They actually call the Catholicos a national security threat. There are four clerics, high-ranking clerics, bishops, who are in prison. Samuel Karpetian, the patron of the church, a layman but a supporter of the church, is in prison for his support. So, and there are a whole range of things that are happening now in Armenia. So we've come back to follow up on that first visit. And so we met with the Catholicos while we were here. We've met, of course, with human rights lawyers and activists. And we made a prison visit just this morning to Archbishop Bagrat Gastanian and brought back actually two messages from him in the form of letters that that will be sent to the International Religious Freedom. It was very fitting that we visited him there because, as you may know, his namesake, he was named as a Archbishop Bagrat in memory of the Archbishop Bagrat who was executed by the Soviets in that same prison in 1937. So there was some significance that he is now in that prison himself. He delivered to us two letters, actually, one to this Religious Freedom Summit, one to J.D. Vance, who's coming to Armenia and Azerbaijan. And we spoke about many things, and I can share some of what he shared with us. But he asked J.D. Vance and the religious freedom advocates to make sure that President Aliyev and Prime Minister Pashinyan stop the persecution of the Armenian Apostolic Church, call for the release of the Christian prisoners in Baku and in Yerevan, and also for the Armenian Apostolic Church to become a dialogue partner in the peace process. We all want peace, and it's important that whatever comes out of a peace process reflects the view of the nation, and that there should be input by the Holy Etchmiadzin, the Mother See, as a part of this peace process, rather than being marginalized as it currently is. So these were what you might say the asks. This is what he would like to see the American Vice President do and religious freedom advocates. But he also raised some really very important questions about the future of Armenia. He did not talk about himself very much. He's actually in good health and really in remarkably good spirits.
I was going to ask how is his health right now, how is his situation?
He said he was in good health. He's lost some weight, but he says that it's because he's exercising and he's able to look after himself. He had no complaints about the treatment. Moreover, he said that he views it, that this is a privilege for him. He feels that it's a privilege for him to be imprisoned for his service to the church and to the nation. So he views his imprisonment really optimistically, almost like it's a part of his mission.
At the same prison of former KGB, as he was named after, as you mentioned, Bagrat Vartazarian, Archbishop, right?
Absolutely.
If I'm not mistaken.
So he's in the same place. Fortunately, he's in good health. He's not being abused physically or psychologically there. And he has hope. He is not a broken man by any means. He has hope for his church. He has hope for the Armenian nation. He knows they're going through difficult times. He wishes that he were not in prison and could play a role in public life, but he believes that he's in prison for a reason. And so he accepts that and regards it as a privilege that he has to endure this suffering for his service to the church and to the nation. So we left there, we left this meeting quite inspired ourselves and uplifted and motivated to carry on and to make sure that his message is conveyed to the people of Armenia and to the outside world. We in Christian Solidarity International try to be a voice for the voiceless and for those who are imprisoned, especially those who are imprisoned without good cause, unjustly imprisoned. And our colleagues from the Center for Political Rights have documented very well the injustices in connection with the imprisonment of Archbishop Bagrat, including the falsification of evidence. This is actually a crime in its own right, to falsify evidence. And this seems to have happened in the case of Bagrat.
And what was his message about, particularly the International Religious Freedom Summit? And I would like to ask your opinion about this summit. What is important from this summit about Armenia?
Well, we don't know. We're not really a part. We're here. The summit is taking place in the United States. But certainly he, and I'm sure that others in his position in Armenia, would like this summit and other religious freedom forums to stop turning a blind eye to the persecution of the Armenian Apostolic Church. The way he views it is that there's a tendency amongst people to say, turn the blind eye, not to, they know what's happening, but they don't really want to show that they see it, because there are other interests involved. Geopolitical interests take precedence. So he spoke, for example, about how the propaganda that comes from Azerbaijan and Turkey and from the government here is that anybody who is supportive of the Armenian Apostolic Church is somehow a Russian agent, that there's this allegation. So this comes up in such forums, and so those people, Americans, who say we don't like Russia, we better stay away from the Armenian Apostolic Church and any kind of opposition to the current
These
government.
are some kind of stereotypes, very, very actual, by the way, in Armenia. So if you criticize America or the West, so you're the Russian agent. If you criticize Russia, it's very actual, by the way.
Right.
Very modern.
Right. So this, Russia card is played, and everybody knows it. And it's used, sometimes we're called Russian assets and so on, because we stand in solidarity with the Karabakhis. We say the Karabakhi issue is not closed. Then Azerbaijan has actually made a reportage, well produced, saying that the Russians have infiltrated the Swiss parliament. and have influenced Erich Vontobel and Stefan Müller-Altermatt and other Swiss parliamentarians to stand up for the rights of the Karabakhi people. And then also, because we're associated with them, that we are fulfilling Russia's request. Same with the World Council of Churches. They have this big conspiracy theory that everybody who opposes what they are doing is somehow connected with Russia, and they try to use this to make people stay away from us, to try to marginalize us, and to frighten people away from this issue. It's kind of funny in a way that at the very time that the so-called Russiagate conspiracy theories against President Trump have been debunked, everybody knows that this is not true. His opposition accused him of being a Russian agent or asset. Everybody knows this is not true now, but it's interesting that it comes up again from Armenia, Turkey, and Azerbaijan, that the governments there use the same tactic.
And my next question, Mr. Eibner, to open or to enlarge the previous point, I mean, do we have a more understanding now or perception about what is going on in Armenia, or the persecution of the Armenian Holy Church? Do we have any support from the international community? And my next question to you, Mr. Vontobel, about the Swiss Peace Initiative, as you represent the Parliament of the Switzerland, and would ask you to update on this topic. Do we have any progress? Is this about the right of natural right of the people of Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh or Artsakh to return to their homeland, or it has wider context?
The Swiss Peace Initiative has been founded 2 months after my motion has passed in the parliament. Of course, it was at the end not my motion anymore, because I entered it in the Foreign Affairs Committee, and then it found a majority there, and then it is now a motion of this Foreign Affairs Committee. But it started by when I entered that. Okay, it found a majority in the National Council, and then later last March in the Council of States. And that means these two chambers have said yes to that, and now our Minister for Foreign Affairs has the task to make it possible, such a peace forum, a round table for the two involved parties. That means Azerbaijan and the people from Nagorno-Karabakh. And to help our minister, we founded this committee. It's a committee of 19 persons at the moment.
Members of parliament?
Yeah.
19 members of parliament.
Exactly, and through all the parties. So it is not a party political issue for us. It is a thing we look at the problem. And the aim was to help our Minister for Foreign Affairs to realize that, because it is not so easy. His attitude is, okay, I only speak with Azerbaijan and with Armenia, but not with Nagorno-Karabakh, because Nagorno-Karabakh is not a country. So he personally cannot deal with Nagorno-Karabakh. We must find another way. And this made him a little bit, And the worst case scenario is that I had then was that he will call Mr. Aliyev and ask, would you like to have a peace forum? No, you don't want, yeah? Okay, and then he says no, and he says, you see, I tried, but it doesn't work. But we want him to put more power into finding a solution and to make it possible to have such a round table. And that, therefore, we said we must, 2023, when this happened there in September, the whole world said that was not correct. They have to have the right to go back. That they even spoke about a crime who was done there, and that's not and a human rights issue, and so on. And at that time, they said these people must have the right to return. The whole world was speaking like that. That was in September 2023, and then 1 month after that, at the 7th October, all the cameras, all the media went to Gaza, and since then nobody cares about this subject.
I'm sorry, and why did we have so weak reaction to the ethno-religious cleansing of Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh?
Why the reactions were so weak? When? Then? No, then they were big, the reactions. But as I said, then everything was focused on Gaza and this topic, and now it has disappeared from the radar of the world. And with our committee, we want to bring it back on this radar of the world and remember them. Listen, do you remember what you told, what you said 2023 in September? They have the right to return and we must find a solution, and that was not correct, it was even a crime.
Right.
And we went we went to Washington and spoke to a lot of people on the Capitol Hill there. And it was interesting when we talked about this motion and everything, and also where it came from. Then they were very impressed and said, really we should do something. And they were touched because this motion, it didn't come from me. I made it and put it in, but this started 14 days before our session of this Foreign Affairs Committee meeting. I was here in Yerevan and on holidays, and then I said, okay, I would like to meet people who were displaced from Nagorno-Karabakh, and then I had the chance to meet around 10-12 of them, and I asked them, okay, I want to hear from you personally. What happened and how was it for you? Not from the media, from you. What happened? And second question was, what would you like to do now? Now you're here, okay? Mm-hmm. It's nice here, yeah? What would you like to do? And it was a rhetorical question because they all said, hey, we want to go back to our homes, to our churches, to our cemeteries, to our schools. We want to go home. And then I asked them, okay, but and what do you think? What should be done? And they said we should have such a round table with Azerbaijan and with them, and find a solution under international observation, of course. And when there is a solution, the international community should make sure that they can live there in security. And I was very touched from this visit there, and I promised them to make something, and then I made this motion, and that's the history behind it. So it came from themselves. And when I explained this story, or I told this story in Washington, or later on in Berlin, or then in London, or also in the United Nations human rights there in Geneva in a side session, they were touched, and therefore I saw, for them it's clear that's not correct. We have to bring up this issue again and find a solution. And I mean, when you think about all that, and now somebody here in this country says, the case is closed. What, please? What?
Who says the case is closed?
Somebody from,
From the Armenian government.
Yes.
May just
that's what I
add
heard,
something
yes.
here. May just add to that this is, of course, a big part of the problem why the international community does not act. Of course, we know that Azerbaijan doesn't really want this. But it would be within the power of the Armenian government to internationalize the issue, to put it into the agenda of the United Nations, to speak to the media, to create public discussion and public debate about it. But I've read and heard the Armenian Prime Minister say that the Karabakh issue is closed. So the Armenian government itself is not highlighting the issue. And so the Swiss Foreign Ministry or the American State Department will speak to the Armenian ambassadors and they say it's closed. So,
but what is the reality? I mean, why it wasn't closed after the 1994 conflict when Armenia won the war, and now they say Azerbaijan won? Of course, it's very arguable, by the way, in Armenia. But and how we came to this paradox situation when even many Democrats from the international community and other countries say they are more committed to the rights of Armenians, Armenian nation on Nagorno-Karabakh. They say no, Nagorno-Karabakh isn't closed, and the Armenian government says it is closed. And if you remember, the Prime Minister in 2019, I think, he announced his famous statement in Stepanakert that Artsakh is Armenia and that's it. And then in 2023 he said, and Artsakh is a part. He doesn't use the word Artsakh anymore. He uses the term Nagorno-Karabakh. He says, Nagorno-Karabakh, I mean, I recognize the territory of Azerbaijan, including Nagorno-Karabakh. So how we came to this paradoxical situation? To continue my question, what is the real state of Nagorno-Karabakh issue now? I mean, I was born, I was raised when the Artsakh movement came, when the Karabakh conflict and war was going on, and we were covering the Karabakh issue for decades of. So, what is the state of the Nagorno-Karabakh issue after also considering the closing of OSCE Minsk group? Then do you see any real practical tools, first of all, for the return of Armenian safe return and to Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh?
I mean, I go back to this remark. I said that somebody said the case is closed, but I mean that's not. Is that the people who said that? Is that the displaced people from Nagorno-Karabakh saying that it is closed? Who is saying that it is closed? That's one person, maybe some, but not the majority. And here I would expect that the Armenian people stand up and say, hey, sorry, that's a singular opinion that the case is closed. But we as people, as nation, we say, no, it's not closed. We want the 120,000 or whatever to be able to go back home. So that who said that it is closed? I mean, I live in a democratic nation, and this would never happen that somebody or a few people say we do this and this and this. Then the people would stand up and say, hey, stop. We vote about that, and of course in a democracy the majority says what will happen. And this I miss a little bit here. I mean, can some people do whatever they want regarding this issue? And all the Armenians say, oh, we don't care. Okay, yeah, okay. No, I would like. I mean, we fight in Switzerland. I fight for this issue because I have met these people and I know how they are thinking. Ask them. They would never say the case is closed. Never. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm continuing to fight for that. And today we visited the Archbishop in jail. And I asked him, what shall we do regarding Nagorno-Karabakh or Artsakh? He told me, continue. So for him the case is not closed.
And why Azerbaijan doesn't give his agreement to start this dialogue with Nagorno-Karabakh community?
I ask you in 10 years, ask them why they took the Sang-de-Sur corridor. I mean, if your government now say the case is closed, it is a very bad signal to Azerbaijan. That means if they do such a thing, there will be a little bit noise, but then, then after a while they say, oh, the case is closed. You can not do that forever. The next thing is that I have been to Megri and I spoke to people, and they have really, they fear that the next thing which will happen is that Azerbaijan takes a little bit more and more and more. And if it continues like that, and you always close the issue, after 50 years, Armenia will be closed. Then no Armenia anymore. That's what I see.
May I just say that we're talking about some fundamental human rights of the people of Nagorno-Karabakh. And human rights can never be closed. We're human rights defenders. So we have an obligation to defend their human rights, and it is impossible to close human rights. And those that accept the closure of human rights or believe that they don't need to be defended will find one day that their own human rights are closed. Your human rights can be closed tomorrow by the same state and international bodies, Turkey and Azerbaijan, that say the Karabakh issue is closed. So this is why we continue to campaign. We believe that most Armenians, we don't know what most Armenians think, but certainly the Karabakhis want to defend their human rights. And Armenian people should think twice about what this will mean for their own future human rights. They will someday be closed to when some aggressor like Azerbaijan or Turkey is in a position to grab what it wants without suffering any consequences.
And do you think the international community or international organizations, of course considering the support of EU as we see to this government, but we know that there are independent organizations and many good people, the Christian world, yes, as you said, this is the post-Christian world, they can play any role in this, supporting or protecting human rights in Armenia?
Well, civil society organizations like ours, Christian Solidarity International, or Swiss parliamentarians, we don't have the instruments of state to provide guarantees. All we can do is try to speak, what we say, truth to power, tell the truth to those in power, and hope that we can help create conditions for political action that will lead to the respect for human rights. We can't do more than that. Armenia today is going through some really very dark days. But these are not the first dark days that Armenia has gone through. And it's gone through darker days in the past, the genocide and massacres. And so this is not a new situation for Armenia. And all we can do is to try to stand in solidarity with the Armenian nation, to encourage it, to take inspiration from it, because things can change in the world. So I don't see any short-term solution. I don't believe that we can give some more speeches, have some more press conferences, and in the short term everything will change. But the global situation is not stable by any means. We live in very uncertain times of rapid change, and the unfavorable constellation of powers that we see today may not be so unfavorable next year, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time.
And what kind of impacts or implications do you see from these global changes or processes as we see?
Well, we see that there have been certain unfavorable developments, and that is that Turkey and Azerbaijan have been given freedom to do what it wants in this part of the world. The ethno-religious cleansing of Karabakh was a classic example of this. They commit a crime against humanity. This is an atrocity crime, contrary to all human rights conventions and agreements. And the outside world did nothing. So this is a very unfavorable time, but that may change in the future. We don't know what will come of the peace negotiations between Russia and the United States. If the United States' attitudes towards Russia changes, that could have huge implications here.
And what about Iran? The Iran
Well, that's
issue?
another thing. We simply don't know. We cannot predict. It could be that by the time we finish this interview, we go and check the news and find that Iran has been bombed by the United States, that we're at that kind of situation, that it can happen very quickly. If something like that happens, there will be huge consequences for Armenia. And it's difficult to predict how all of this will play out when you have that kind of conflict. But I personally believe that there are some dark days ahead for Armenia, but it's not without hope. The Armenians have faced very dark days in the past, and if the Armenian nation sticks to its faith, supports the church that has supported its survival through the centuries, I believe that what Archbishop Bacrat told us is the truth, and I share the same view. He says, we in our church cannot be defeated because we're defended by Christ. And if you're defended at the end of the day by Christ, you cannot be defeated. You may go through very difficult times. But we live in that hope. And again, Armenians people who know their history, know that it is never hopeless.
Why then the Armenian genocide happened if Armenians were Christians and very faithful?
Well, well, that's a very good question. You can ask the same question of Jews. This is a question that Jews ask themselves. We believe in God, and why did God allow this to happen to us? And it's actually the same thought that went through Jesus' mind when he was crucified. Why hast thou forsaken me? He felt abandoned by his Father. These are mysteries of faith that we cannot really answer, but we know that it is that suffering is a part of human existence, but also the triumph over suffering is a part of the human existence. And we live in the faith that evil will not triumph, that death is not the end of the day for individuals or for nations, for that matter, especially those that remain faithful to the Almighty.
Man, I think, I will leave this question for the end. You said that His Graciousness Bagrat Archbishop Galstanian had the message also for the upcoming visit of the U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. I mean, what it has to do with the visit of American Vice President, especially in the context of TRIP project discussions?
Right. Well, Archbishop Bagrat, in addressing the Vice President, of course, spoke about what is happening in Armenia today. He spoke about the pressure that Armenia is under from Turkey and Azerbaijan, that they are establishing conditions for peace, and that the Armenian government is meeting their conditions one after another, apparently without much resistance. For example, the persecution of the church, that Turkey and Azerbaijan publicly say the Armenian Apostolic Church is an obstacle to peace. Okay, so there's a peace process. If that is an obstacle of peace, you have to remove the obstacle. You have
How
to
can
remove
one of the most peaceful organizations be an obstacle for peace? I cannot understand. I mean, this is rhetoric.
Right, okay. You have to try to look at it from the Turkic Islamic point of view. And it goes back to why there was a genocide, the political reasons. That the Ottomans and their successors, the present, we have a neo-Ottoman
Successors of genocide, as you say.
Successors of genocide. They cannot accept that Armenians have political agency. That Armenians can have a national will and be sovereign and have political independence. That's actually why there was a genocide. The genocide coincided with an Armenian national awakening.
That's
In
true.
the late 19th centuries, you had
That's
the massacres
true.
before the big genocide. But this is what triggered the genocide from the Turkish point of view. They said that we've lost the Balkans, the Christian population, we lost them. They wanted independence and so on. We're not going to allow that to happen here in our own backyard in Anatolia and the Caucasus. And so
which we call Western Armenia.
Which you call Western Armenia, right? In Western Armenia. And so because there was this political agency that was being developed at a time of war, when maybe there were outside powers that might use the Armenians.
You mean state agency, political agency, meaning state or organization, or that's an interesting term.
So this was their solution. This was kind of a part of their political culture. You massacre. You put, and so before the Armenian massacres, you had the Bulgarian massacres for the same reasons. That the Bulgarians wanted to have political agency, and the Ottomans said, no, you're not going to, we're going to massacre you so that you don't. So this tradition remains alive today. And while they have basically eliminated the Armenian community in Turkey, Western Armenia, so that they cannot have political agency, they see the Armenian state as a potential threat because it has exercised political agency originally in defending Karabakh. And so they're strong enough now to try to destroy they destroyed the political agency of the Armenians in Karabakh. Now it's the Armenian Republic itself that cannot be allowed to function independently and defend the interests of the Armenian nation. And the church is a part of that. The church is actually the bastion. The state itself is new. It's relatively weak. The political parties are relatively new, relatively weak. Even the Dachnaks, kind of the oldest continuous party, how old are the Dachnaks? 130 years? That's nothing compared to the church.
1,700 and more.
Yes. And that's not to criticize the parties, but it just shows the weight of the church as the anchor, as the bastion of the Armenian nation. So therefore it's important for any enemy of the Armenian nation to try to control or possibly even completely destroy the church so it cannot be a voice for the nation. And it's not only the Ottoman Turks that did this in Azerbaijan. That's of course what the communists in Moscow did. They couldn't accept nationalities as independent, but you had to be a part of Soviet Republican. And their ideology, the Armenian nation and the Armenian, or the religion itself, would wither away and disappear. And they used the state to, the power of the state to hasten that process. That's why Archbishop Bagrat's namesake was executed in the prison just 5 minutes walk from here in 1937. And that kind of persecution was taking place. So you have different ideologies that say, no, you cannot be a sovereign state. No, you cannot exercise your full rights as a nation. And if there are institutions like the church that support it, then they must be weakened. And so Armenians should be very concerned about this. They often look at the EU, I think mistakenly, as a place of democracy. And then there are democracies within the EU, but the whole concept of the EU is to undermine state sovereignty. All of the members of the EU give up their sovereignty.
Do you mean the support by the EU on these hybrid wars or hybrid threats to the Armenian government they promised?
So I didn't quite
Do you mean the support by the EU diplomacy as they promised to the Armenian government against so-called hybrid wars or hybrid
Yes,
states?
well, we know for a fact because they announced it. Ms. Kallas made it public that there were, I think, 15 million euros or something like that to the Armenian government to fight hybrid warfare and disinformation, Russian disinformation. She said that Russian disinformation. Now then, when you hear the Armenian government say that the church is a Russian agent, that the church is a Russian asset, that the opposition political parties are serving the interests of Russia, that means that this money is to be used against Armenians.
And it unfortunately works, in terms of informational war, right?
Well,
How can we handle this?
That's what it's all about. Well, you can handle it by speaking the truth. That's all that we can do. Combating disinformation is usually another word for extending your own propaganda. That's what it amounts to. And we have the obligation, especially, we're not Armenians, we have an NGO, but you're also independent media. You have the obligation to speak the truth to power. That's all that we can do, is keep speaking the truth and let the 15 million euros be used to pay people to spread their own disinformation. We speak the truth, and it's really in the hands of the Almighty what He does with it. We have no power of state. We cannot use the coercive powers of state to fulfill our agenda. All we can do is speak truth to power and hope that the collective power of faithful Armenians is enough to change the course of history in their favor.
And so, Dr. Eibner, what do you think? How do you see the coming developments around the church? Is he going to arrest or do any sharp actions against the Catholicos of all Armenians? And the second, I'm sure that our Catholicos and our clergymen are ready to be martyred for their faith. But what about the world? What about the world? What about the other churches? Are they going to speak about this? Are they recognizing that this can happen also with them anytime or not?
Well, we cannot predict what the government is going to do next, what its next steps are. Just in these days, they have pressed legal charges against 6 members of the Supreme Spiritual Council, which means that they cannot leave Armenia to go to the meeting of the bishops in Austria. The government has also dissolved the military chaplaincy.
Right.
So, okay, this continues to escalate. And
How do you assess this?
Well, they are doing it, and this issue has escalated greatly since the summer when there was this World Council of Churches event, and the Catholicos spoke about the right to return to Karabakh, and other national issues spoke about the genocide. And so I see that we're still in a situation of escalation. What the next steps are, I don't know, but what we do know is what the Prime Minister says, and he says he is going to achieve his goal. He is going to ensure that the Catholicos goes and that his so-called reform movement prevails. If he is true to his word, then he will use every means available to himself to achieve that goal, which could be the arrest of the Catholicos. Or there are many, many, many things that the state can do, especially in this rather lawless situation. The only thing that can, prevent this are international partners like the United States saying, "Don't do this. You're crossing a red line. This is a red line that you cannot cross." If this message comes from the United States, if it were to come from the EU, even if it were to come from Russia, that would stay the hand of the Prime Minister. If there would be consequences for this. And as long as there are no consequences for it, then one has to assume that there is tacit approval for what the Prime Minister is doing. They won't say so openly, but if they do nothing, just as with the ethno-religious cleansing of Karabakh, they did nothing. So you have to assume that they really perhaps wanted it.
And do you think Mr. J.D. Vance could say something like that?
Of course he can say something. Whether he will or not, I don't know. Of course he can say this.
Because they are protecting Christians worldwide, right?
President Trump is on record saying that he and his administration will protect persecuted Christians. He spoke about Armenians in particular. He will protect Armenian Christians. He called the ethno-religious cleansing of Nagorno-Karabakh a hideous, horrible crime. That's what he said about it. But of course, politicians can talk. They can say what's not true. But we want to hold him and his vice president and the United States government to his word. We want to challenge them. There is the persecution of Christians in Armenia today. The 4 bishops, they're Christians. Samuel Karapetian is a bishop. There is a lay patron of the church. He's in prison because he was supporting the church. We would expect the U.S. government, if it's going to be true to President Trump's word, to protect the Christians. And it's very easy to, because Mr. Pashinyan is not an independent actor. He yields to power. What we see in his behavior today is, as you mentioned already, that he used to speak differently. He was the champion of Nagorno-Karabakh. Nagorno-Karabakh, where Artsakh is Armenian, and we heard these kinds of things. But in 2020, Armenia was severely defeated. Militarily
by
defeated.
Whom?
By
Azerbaijan only?
Not
Turkey?
Azerbaijan, with the support of Turkey, with jihadists from Syria. Turkey enabled them to come to Azerbaijan. So there was a very big military defeat. And who defended Armenia? No one.
Why?
Because they did not believe they had an interest in defending Armenia becoming involved. And that there was then again a ceasefire that Russia got involved and arranged a ceasefire.
Or there were more deeper and wider geopolitical.
Yes, there are wider and deeper geopolitical and
Projects.
economic projects that kept, say, the United States, the European countries from becoming involved. So what you have is this serious major military defeat by overwhelming power. There are, I think, fewer than 3 million Armenians in Armenia, roughly 3 million, say. There are about 100 million Turks and Azerbaijanis. If you put them together, Azeri Turks, you have 3 million, and then you're facing...
We'll still manage to survive. How?
Well, you have survived so far. I cannot... you will survive with the help of God, but you have to help yourself. There are certain things that, if you surrender, then you lose it all. That is the fact of the matter. So when they say there's this peace treaty which has not been signed, and of course it hasn't been signed, there is no real peace yet. What is happening is Armenia is being forced to sign a capitulation treaty. That's what this treaty is.
Do you mean the TRIP or do you mean the peace agreement?
The peace agreement is a capitulation treaty. TRIP is a part of it. TRIP is just a part of the capitulation treaty. And the conditions for peace are that you don't want to talk too much about the genocide. Turkey says there'll be no peace if there's more what they call genocide propaganda coming from Armenia. They say there'll be no more peace unless you change your constitution, unless you denationalize your constitution. There'll be no more peace as long as there is an Armenian Apostolic Church that defends the national tradition. There'll be no peace if there are Armenians in Karabakh. So there are these conditions that have to be met before the capitulation treaty, that's a treaty of surrender, is signed. And we do not know the last of Turkey and Azerbaijan's conditions before they will be willing to sign the treaty and what this treaty will mean for Armenia. And then people should not be deceived about the value of the treaty. So they signed a treaty. How many treaties have been broken? How many treaties have there been that have defended the rights of Armenia? Okay. So why should this treaty be any different?
You know the Armenian history better than I think then probably.
Well, there's the Treaty of Sèvres that gave a lot. And then, the Treaty of Lausanne comes and it's less and less. And we're in a situation where the Lausanne Treaty doesn't have any value anymore. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have any value. And Armenia has been defeated now, and Azerbaijan and Turkey want to sign a treaty that will rob the Armenian nation of political agency, its ability to function independently and to defend its own interests.
So my impression is that this is an objective reality, this is going on, and we don't live, we are not a factor, and we just watch what is happening. I mean, can we do something for that? How do you see the coming developments around the peace agreement or the Armenia-Azerbaijan, and how much it is linked with the coming elections in Armenia? And the second, more important question, what about Samuel Karapetyan, the famous Armenian, businessman who is now under house arrest? At the end of the day, what was his fault or sin? What did he say during that 30-second interview?
Well, everyone knows what he said. He said that we will do it in our own way when it came to defending the church. That's what he said, and that's why he was That's the ostensible reason the government interprets in our own way as if it means, I don't know, violence or revolution or something like that, which he never said. The real crime is that he is somebody that is loyal to the church and empowers the church through his financial support. So the government's strategy is to deny that support. Not only the support that he might give it, because they've nationalized his companies, but it's also a warning to other patrons of the church that if you support the church, you will be regarded as a national security threat yourself, and you will suffer consequences. Your businesses will suffer. You will not have any more contracts with the state, or maybe your business will be nationalized, or people who are from the diaspora, they'll be perhaps afraid to come to Armenia because they might have some problems with the authorities. So this is the tactic of the state when it comes to Samuel Karapetyan. And we don't know, again, how all of this will play out, but I'm very confident that Armenia will go through some more difficult times before we see light at the end of the tunnel.
And Mr. Vontobel, you mentioned that they may take the so-called Zangezur corridor in 10 years. I mean, do you see really this kind of actions? Because the Armenian government called it the TRIP project, not so-called Zangezur corridor. I mean, do you think they will do some annexation of Mehri or the Syunik region?
I'm here the third time in Armenia, and I have spoken to many people, and I heard from different sides that they have the fear that this will happen. And where does that come from, this fear? They feared that after this conference in Baku, the whole world was in Baku for this climate conference. They tell me, listen, when all the media is away from Baku after this conference, then something will happen. And especially the people in the south, I had the feeling heard from them that they fear that something like that could happen. And I mean, if signals from Nagorno-Karabakh, from Artsakh, if you say the case is closed, then it can happen what I mentioned, that they get peace, like a salami, piece by piece. Why not? Nothing happens, a little bit noise.
Why should anybody think that the TRIP corridor provides some kind of security for Armenia? As you've already mentioned yourself, the Armenian Prime Minister at one stage was saying that Artsakh is Armenia. So what confidence can one have in such words, and the words that are articulated now by the Armenian Prime Minister? How can one take them very seriously in terms of some kind of guarantee? No, it will not happen. It's not really a corridor. It's something else.
It's, I would say, impeded connectivity, whatever it means. I mean, nobody understands it. Is it a corridor or transit or a road?
First of all, what guarantees are there that it will be open for everybody? There are no real guarantees. Who's going to defend it?
And what are the real guarantees of security? Because the Prime Minister says it will bring some real guarantees of security.
Well, then the Prime Minister or people who will say that there will be real guarantees for security should explain what those guarantees are. Who is providing the guarantee? I have not heard the United States speak about providing any guarantee for anything in Armenia. I haven't heard the European Union say anything or make any commitment to provide any guarantee. They have some border monitors. That's not a guarantee of anything if Azerbaijan wants to move. So we don't see that and of course Russia gives no guarantees, even though they're supposed to guarantee the security of the Armenian Republic. It does not seem that there are any more guarantees that one can count on than there were for Nagorno-Karabakh. There were guarantees for Nagorno-Karabakh. The Minsk process, OSCE Minsk process, said there will be no use of force against Karabakh.
And now
Armenia, Azerbaijan signed the documents saying there will be no use of force. Okay, that was the legal document. Well, Azerbaijan used used the force, and there were no consequences for Azerbaijan. So if Azerbaijan feels, or Turkey together, and because they act as they say themselves, one nation, two states. It's like one nation with two heads. The biggest head and the strongest part is, of course, Turkey.
You think they are creating so-called Turkish-Azeri condominium?
Yes, that's what I call it. There is a Turkish-Azeri condominium, and Armenia is being absorbed into that. And as I say, the important thing for them is to make sure that Armenia does not have an independent political agency, that it submits to domination by Turkey and Azerbaijan. And if it gets what it wants out of Armenia, then maybe they don't invade. I mean, I don't think that they actually want to invade Armenia. Why should they, if they get what they want? If there's a surrender, and this is how I see their goals. They want to be able to do business here. They will want to kind of colonize again, have Azerbaijanis and Turks come into Armenia. They'll want to buy property. They will want to, you can dominate a country without invading it. This is happens all around the world. There's a concept that
more modern thing.
Well,
right?
I mean, it goes back to even the British Empire. Historians talk rightly about the British Empire was not only the colonies where the British flag, the Union Jack, flew, and they had direct rule from London, or governors from London. You have a so-called informal empire. And it means that these territories, become a part of a sphere of influence, and they cannot exercise political agencies. They have to align their policies according to the imperial interest of another power. Turkey is a neo-Ottoman state. It has neo-Ottoman ambitions. It does not mean to say that they're going to invade every state like they have done with Cyprus. They've invaded and occupied northern Cyprus. They have interests in Africa. They have interests in Germany, in the old kind of neo-Ottoman sphere. Doesn't mean to say that they are going to militarily invade all of these places. They will use soft power, economic power, different means of coercion to gain what they want, be it geopolitical advantage, strategic advantage, or economic advantage.
And so, what do you think, how the Armenian nation can fight these challenges or challenge these kind of plans of Turkey or Azerbaijan?
Well, it has to understand. It has to understand the challenge, and it has to react in a unified way, and simply not yield to the wishes of Azerbaijan and Turkey, and to try to make the case to the international community, to draw red lines. I don't know what Armenia will not surrender for peace. This has not been made clear. What will Armenia not? Where do you draw the red line?
It depends on who do you mean saying you, because the actor is the government.
That's what we're talking about. So if you have a government that makes like an unconditional surrender to Turkey and Azerbaijan, there's not much that anybody in the international community can do for it. First, there has to be the will. And it's really important that the Armenian government shows where the red lines are and what it's not prepared to surrender, and try to find support from the international community to enable it to survive. That's all it can do. But as I say, the international community will always look to the Armenian government first. The Republic of Armenia is perceived as the representative of the Armenian nation. And if the Armenian government says, like the Nagorno-Karabakh issue is closed, the church issue is closed, we're dealing with it in our own way, it's an internal Armenian affair, the international community is not going to argue with the Armenian government and say, no, it's not closed.
And Mr. Vontobel, did you have some kind of discussions or consultations with the Artsakh parliamentarians or organizations? So, and you say that we don't have any progress, unfortunately, on this issue. And how do you see the return in the future of the Nagorno-Karabakh issue to the international agenda?
Last time I had contact with parliamentarians from Nagorno-Karabakh was last May. Yes, I met some of them. Yes, and we exchanged our opinions and so on. As I said, they fight for the same thing I am also supporting, and but the progress is little. I mean, today somebody told me I have no hope regarding this issue, Nagorno. I have no hope. And then I asked her, so what, do you want to say that I can stop? And no. The Archbishop said that we shall continue, and that's what we are going to do. I think when 2024, when I told them that I'm going back to Switzerland, I tried to do something. The poor people sitting there, they were thinking, I guess they thought that in a month or two they can return. I felt that they thought a little bit like this, and I must disappoint them. It will not be in short term, maybe in mid-term or so.
But you see their readiness to return.
Yes, of course. And I mean, the propaganda, now we are in the field of propaganda. They say that they don't want to return. That's why we can close the case. But are you sure that they don't want to return? Did you ask them? I mean, you, not the government, other organizations maybe. Ask them, do you want to return? Yeah. And by the way, if I have the opportunity to say something about propaganda, this Archbishop we visited today in jail.
Bagrat Archbishop.
Yeah. Why has he been arrested, and what do they say he is? Am I wrong that I heard even the word terrorist or something like this? Mm-hmm. And I think I heard that. And with this in my mind, I went to jail today, and I thought that I would find an angry man, a terrorist, depressive, and we were there 1.5 hours, had a really intensive discussion, and I always ask myself, hey, where is this terrorist? What I heard and felt, I must say, he is not depressive. he is in good condition. And I asked him, why are you so positive? What is? And then he said he has a direct connection to heaven. Yeah, this gives him power. So all in all, I can say, are you sure? What is the truth? What do they say from the government that he has done? And what is the truth? I'm not so sure that he is a terrorist and that he did bad thing. That, you know, after 1.5 hours, if you really have a good discussion, you have a bit the feeling what the kind of man it is. And I cannot imagine that this person does wrong things and bad things and even is cruel and is a terrorist. No. So that means this. If the Armenian people hear such things, that he is this and this and this, done that and that and that, they should be able to put a question mark and ask themselves, is that really the truth?
By the way, did you have a meeting with Mikhail Archbishop Ajapahian, Mr. Eibner, and Mr. Eibner, Mr. Vontobel, when you have meetings with the head of government, meaning Nikol Pashinyan or other members of Armenian government, do you say that this is not right, why are you doing so? Or any other members of Swiss government or other members of Switzerland government, what could you say about this?
Well, we say it's not right to everybody. So we, first of all, we've only met with Archbishop Bagrat. It's a long and complicated process. It's not simple to go to these prisons and to meet people. So we've been working on this visit since last November, and our time is short here. So we were only able to see him, but we will make every effort to meet other prisoners as we return, and we will encourage other people to visit. They should do so. If you're a so-called religious freedom activist and you're in Armenia, you should visit the prisoners. That's actually what the Bible tells us to do. You visit the prisoners. Jesus, when he started his earthly ministry, he started it in a synagogue reading from Isaiah and said, I've come to free the captives. That's his agenda, his public agenda, to free the captives. And that is part of our agenda. So we want to encourage others to show solidarity with those who are imprisoned, of course to pray for them, and to be inspired by them. When people say, what Armenians or people in the diaspora, what can you do? You should pray for these people and to try to develop the spirituality of Archbishop Bagrat, who has a connection, a spiritual connection, and I don't mean a hocus pocus something. He's a man of prayer, he's a man of faith, and if Armenians can develop the same kind of faith and relationship with the Almighty, they will develop the same kind of power that he has.
And so, please.
Something more about this visit today. We went to visit Archbishop, and I told you before I was surprised that he is so positive and such a... I was surprised and in good condition and so on. And something else which surprised me, we went into this jail and met a lot of staff here and everywhere, and they knew who we are going to visit. And I must say, I was very, it was remarkable that the staff, they were all very, very friendly. Also, they knew who we are going to visit. And for me, this is also an indication, and really very friendly and helpful, everything. And for me, this is an indicator that I don't think that he's such a bad guy as
they were representing.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine, because, just think about it. If it would be a bad guy, then the staff would behave in another way. They will be. We have to to hold this tiger and be he has done bad things and so. But no, nothing about that. All were very friendly, and I had the impression they like him.
And by the way, as I see you are so impressed by Bagrat Archbishop, I wear a cross which he gave to me once. And so to have a conclusion on this church issue, state church, as you say, to be sure, this campaign is against the person of His Holiness Catholicos or against the Armenian Apostolic Holy Church. I will give you a quote by a member of Armenian government and very prominent member of Civil Contract Party, ruling party. Arsen Torosyan, one of the ministers, he says, what even is the Bible, a book which states that there is a God and that very book is the only proof of his existence? I believe in Charles Perrault's fairy tales more.
Right.
These are his words.
This is the kind of statement that one used to hear from the Bolsheviks when they were at war with the Christian faith. It sounds like old-fashioned Bolshevik propaganda.
And my last question, as I mentioned, many of my friends ask me as a humble expert of political issues, what will be the end of ours or of our country, and now I ask you as an expert of the Bible, what will be in the end?
Well, I'm not into end times prophecy. I cannot predict what will happen, except we believe that the Almighty will come again and that truth and justice will prevail over death and lies, ultimately. We don't know when, we don't know how. We know that there has been terrible suffering. The Armenians have already gone through a genocide. But if you take a look at, say, the Jewish people who've also had it, there are many parallels, of course, between Armenian history and the history of the Jewish people, that they had no state for a long time. Who would have ever believed that after the Holocaust there would be a state and that Jews would be able to defend themselves in their own state? This would be unbelievable. People couldn't imagine that was the case. And it's hard to believe that will be the case with Armenia as the state. The Armenian nation is under assault, and we just have to believe, it's a matter of faith, that the Armenian nation, if it stays faithful to the Almighty through the church that it has been given, will somehow survive and prevail over the evil that is raged against it. It's a matter of faith, not science.
Great point.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this interesting interview, Mr. Eibner, Mr. Vontobel.
Thank you for hosting us.
Always welcome to Armenia.